And when it's ready. We're live now, so you can start now.
Thank you. Hello and welcome to the Super Rugby Review Show here on New Zealand Sports Radio. Yes, we are back yet again. And as you can see, we have Mr. Bright Orange T-shirt guy Ashwin back, and you can possibly have told maybe, I'm not sure how much you got of that, of him trying to find various buttons on the screen. It's been so long since he's been doing these shows. Yeah, he's like a month and a half, 2 months off actually.
Yes.
Anyway, he's back, and yeah, he's not that bad. But hey, he might be bad in his presenting. We'll have to wait and see. So, good evening, Ashwin.
Hi.
And as you can tell, I'm not at home. I'm in Ashwin's office. And good evening, Boa. How are you doing?
A very, very good evening. Thank you very much. Orange, a color which suits you, Ashwin. And orange for orange card. Hopefully we see that card in action in Auckland's senior club competition this season. Much thanks to my safe tackle framework. A little bit of practicality in rugby. So let's see. I hope you guys are well.
Yeah, no, we're good. We're good. It's been a very busy day. For myself. And Paul's had a very busy day. He's got some more good content coming up for New Zealand Sport Radio. Not necessarily rugby, but yeah, it's still good stuff.
Yep, so cricket content coming out. Also, check out the Indo-Kiwi Cricket Club.
That's right.
Where I've been posting some stuff today for them, as they invited me up to help cover their tournament. So if you would like help covering one of your sports tournaments, then just, and obviously I can get there, then I'd love to help you out with that, giving you some exposure, some interviews and stuff. And hey, if you like to fly me around the world, well, actually,
that's what I was just going to say.
Post-COVID,
fly around New Zealand at the moment. That's okay.
Absolutely.
I think, guys, that's a brilliant initiative, because given that COVID's having a massive say on sport, and there's a lot of sport happening in and around New Zealand, so I think it's a great initiative, great community engagement from New Zealand Sport Radio. So well done to both of you, and hopefully this snowballs into something enormous.
Yeah, well, just a bit of background on the obviously we're here to talk rugby, but the Indo-Kiwi boys have been going for over 20 years. So they've had organised competition for over 20 years, and they actually have teams, like about 20 odd teams in the general club competition as well. And then they organise this T20 competition. So it's interesting that you've got these sort of community-based groups that have had these very successful competitions going for numerous years.
It's a great talent scouting platform as well, because I spend a lot of time when the Auckland Samoan and Auckland Tongan rugby tournaments are on, and it's a great talent headhunting ground for myself for Manukau Rose. So there you go.
Well, actually, interesting you said that. So like this tournament has been going on again. Not quite rugby, but just gives you an idea and a flavour of how community sport is actually happening out there. But Aditya Ashoka, that has played under-19s for New Zealand, went to the under-19 tournament. He was out there today playing for one of the teams in the T20 tournament that Paul was at. So they've got some other under-19 players as well. But that's a name that's coming up and coming, and I'm sure we'll see in Black Caps colours in the years to come.
So for more information, for more stuff on cricket, do check out New Zealand Sports Radio, and also Swinging from the Hip, our cricket
show.
I thought I saw a buddy gap. Our cricket, our cricket group, discussion group. So always good for a chat about that. Evening, everyone who's joined us in the live chat. Yeah, so let's kick off then with the Chiefs versus the Highlanders. And look, the Chiefs didn't make too bad a start to this. Got themselves a holding on penalty within about 30 seconds and knocked over the points to go 3-0 up. And one of the interesting things about this one is that basically until we had yellow cards, both teams were taking points, which is the kind of thing you've been championing and saying that teams should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because of the nature and the format of the tournament, I think every minute matters. So you kind of got to play every game as if it was a knockout final. So whenever you get opportunity to get the points, bank the points. And especially just looking at the ball being live in play, the Kiwi teams really like to play the ball quite open and fast. So the tempo is really upbeat. So it really does take a toll, especially in these weather conditions when it's slightly hotter. So whenever you get the chance, slow things down, get some control, get some water back into the system and take the points. So love to see, loving to see these New Zealand teams wanting to bank the points. And I think a bigger picture, hopefully we can convert this into test rugby as well. Whenever we get the opportunity, take the 3 points.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we had, I guess, we had a couple of yellow cards. First one for Tompkinson, not getting back on side. So cynical play after a big break by the Chiefs. And this led the Chiefs basically to change their tactics. Once they're a man up, they decided to take scrums rather than penalties, and getting a couple of tries whilst they're a man up. And you thought suddenly 20-6, the Chiefs are back into pre-lockdown form, sort of early 2010 form. Sorry, early 2010. No, early
2010. Wow. Rolling the clock back there.
Early 2020.
Glenn Jackson was actually playing for the Chiefs back then.
Sorry. Early.
He was a great goal kicker, Glenn Jackson. Much better goal kicker than a referee. I have to say that.
Early. Yep.
Early 2020 form. Sorry. When they didn't look a bit dangerous initially under Gatland, and you're thinking, hey, look, this is looking good for them. Especially then, they got a bit lucky. Let's be honest. There was a forward pass ahead of Ash Dixon's yellow card, but that was missed by the referees.
Surprise.
Right. Don't worry. We'll be muting Boa if he goes on too long about referees. This evening. But Ash Dixon, I say, diving over. Look, what he did was yellow card worthy, diving over and killing the ball after a break. Absolutely. Should the player have been allowed to continue that long? No, it shouldn't. But that seemed to galvanise the Highlanders, and suddenly, whilst they're a man down, they then actually come back, do a line-out maul. There's a line-out maul by the Chiefs. Gatland. Look, one of the things about this Highlanders defence, had it been working? Not entirely. Hence, we got those 2 tries from scrums. But one of the things it had been was definitely rush and quick, putting players under pressure. Gatland not basically reading the reading the room, reading the play, tries to chip over, which is totally wrong style of play for that against that defence. Gets knocked down, and off goes Nariki, who shows Conor Garden-Bishop how it's done. Yes, he's not the fastest guy.
Jackson Garden-Bishop. Connor's his brother who's playing for the Highlanders. Jackson's the one that ran short.
Was it? Oops. Yeah. Okay, sorry, wrong one. Damn, I was going so well.
It's like, it's like Jack and Josh,
No, is that Jack and Jill? Anyway, who was it again? Jackson
Garden-Bishop.
Jackson Garden-Bishop. This mess things up. We'll talk about that later. But look, Nariki, not the fastest guy. He's getting closed down by Jonah Lowe, but he keeps composed. Takes a great line to the try line. Dives early, knowing he'll slide over, and a great try by Nariki that basically turns the tide of the game. Misconversion by Joshuani. Joshuani misses a penalty as well. So really, in that second yellow card, the Highlanders dominated, even being a man down. And a totally different side somehow with just that Nariki interception being key there. Well,
yeah, absolutely. I think that was the turning point. The wrong option, as you rightly pointed out, going for that cross kick. And look, Chiefs' strength is their width. Out wide, out on the tram lines. They just need to use those attack weapons, guys like Jonah Lowe. And he's got some serious space and wheels. But for some reason, they opted to play this sort of cute 50-50, cross kick sort of game, which they're not very good at. And they basically played Nareki right into form. And boy, as soon as there was broken play, I think the Highlanders understood that the Chiefs weren't putting line speed because they were drifting, and I think they were drifting way too slow. The Highlanders looked to attack width, and they basically outplayed the Chiefs for about 20 minutes at their own game. And also, I think with the Highlanders, when they put their front foot forward and actually started getting good front foot ball, quick recycle, it's very, very difficult. They're a side who are pretty much a confident side, and they showed some real good skills. And one thing from a coaching point of view I have to highlight is the Highlanders, the first receivers were getting the ball right in front of their the eyes and chest line, whereas some of the Chiefs guys had to sort of go to the left, and that's what was actually slowing everything down, and that allowed the Highlanders defense to really get in their face. And even that cross kick, if you look at the tape, if you play it back, you can see that the first pass was not ideally in that right situation to execute that kick as fast as they could, and that gave Nareki ample opportunity to hit the intercept.
Well, yeah, I mean, that second try by it was another prime example of that. Dane McKenzie ends up turning around, taking it behind him, and look, it's a great take, but that pass is far from where it should be. But they got away with that time to score, but not that other times no.
But I think you have to look, going back to let's just look at the game overall here. The Chiefs starting off well. That's what teams that have been losing 10 in a row do, right? They come out there, they're all pumped up, all guns blazing. But at the end of the day, the only one that thought that the Chiefs were ever going to win that game was Paul when he put $3 on there. That's probably because he lives in Waihi now. But the reality is that the Highlanders were always going to win that game. It was just a case of, there was a few things going wrong for the Highlanders early on, little things that just couldn't get their game started. Once they got their game started, they were always going to roll over the top of the Chiefs. And it was quite a comfortable win when you look at it. Apart from the early points that the Chiefs got early doors, it was all Highlanders thereafter anyway, wasn't it? I think when you look at the final scoreline.
Kind of, but it was all Nareki, really. I'm not sure that the other players on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, look, 197 run beaters. And of course, another point I have to highlight is the Chiefs kind of got out-muscled in the ruck, the first two ruck phases. They didn't commit enough numbers, and when they did, it was what I call a soft go forward, and that's where there were a couple of critical turnovers, and then the ball went to Nareki, and it was all history because they had some of the bigger boys out wide, and they couldn't even lay a finger on him. So from a tactical point of view, very poor by the Chiefs, and I think they paid the price for about a period where there was 20 minutes where they were very casual. They were going way too high, and this is something I'm not a huge fan of. The players entering into a tackle way above that chest line, and it's almost like trying to graze people on the back of the shoulders. It's not good. And if you look at the missed tackle count and where the Chiefs missed some of those critical tackles, it was appalling. So it's not what you expect at this level of rugby.
Well, look, I mean, the Chiefs were poor. I mean, 85% tackle rate, but the Highlanders were worse at 75%. But anyway,
so who had more ball though?
The Highlanders had
more ball.
Well, actually, 50-50.
50-50.
But the Highlanders had better territory. Is when they made clean breaks, they nailed them. And I think that's really kind of the big difference between these two sides.
Bang on. And precisely my point, because I think the poor tackle technique or the entry into a tackle was really highlighted with that penalty where there was an elbow to Joshua Ioane's head. Now, if you slow that video footage down, I mean, Ioane was literally on his toes, upright like a stick, with his eyes closed and his head up. And I mean, who on earth teaches you to tackle like that? And it's appalling. So that to me personified why both teams are missing so many tackles. But at the same time, as you rightly pointed out, Paul, it was those clean breaks and the moment where those clean breaks occurred, the Chiefs paid a very, very high price. And, some days, guys like Nareki, you give them space, it's game over. So that's what we saw.
Yeah, so we've talked about Nareki. So he scored 3 tries.
Said it and created that one for club.
And then created one for Frizzell. As well. So, which I guess, look, that shows that players like Frizzell, it's all good and well to make that break, but you need that Frizzell, you need that player to be there with you, supporting you for when you get caught. So it's a great awareness, you say, by players about who's in front of them. Also, Fakataba, we've got to talk about him. He started instead of Aaron Smith this time. Just off the line, notices that the Chiefs defence is not respecting him, and he's going. So he dummies. They all run off to the side, and he just walks through the gap there to score. Aaron Smith clearly was not happy with the young gun upstaging him because he was pulled straight after that and replaced. Joking, folks. That was Fakataba given 50 minutes, which is a good a good chunk of time, and good rotation of those two scrum halves. Something that the Crusaders have been doing for a number of years.
Well, I mean, I just in the Fakataba thing is just a massive win for the Highlanders in terms of the fact that they've got two very quality halfbacks now, and you've gone from Aaron Smith playing 78 minutes of a game every game, 12 games a season, to now genuinely, they can easily, Aaron Smith 60 minutes, let's sub him. Or start like they did against the Chiefs of Fakataba, because he's a quality player that brings so much to the table. And, he's bringing different games to Aaron Smith as well, right? And the fact that they can, hey, look, we change it up. So you don't know what the Highlanders are going to bring you. It's something different with the two halfbacks.
Yeah, and from an All Blacks high performance point of view, great way to manage Aaron Smith's minutes as well. So I think this is a wonderful precursor into the test season. And also, great succession planning and giving guys like Fakataba quality game time. He's going to be a good understudy under Aaron Smith, and especially with guys like Tony Brown. I mean, they know their jam inside out, and they work very closely with the All Blacks coaching staff. So I think great signs, wonderful work. And yeah, look, the other real crucial thing for me was the Highlanders in their set piece. They went back to the basics. They went to that number 2, number 4, the money ball, kept it simple, quick, nice ball from the top, and they shifted it wide to guys like the Recce. So, that's what you really need. You go back to your basics, do it really well, do it at speed, and next thing you know, you're 40 points ahead.
The other thing we should talk about is the first ever successful captain's challenge, or the first captain's challenge that we had there at the end of the game for a high elbow lead that Aaron Smith did for. Now, I know, Bill, you were like, oh dear, the referee's kind of all over the place here. And to be fair to the referee, he had the TMO in his ear. He was talking to an AR, and he also had Aaron Smith going, ref, challenge, ref, challenge, captain, challenge, ref, challenge. And he's like, guys, give me some space to listen. Now, as was pointed out, that good out-captaining the All Blacks captain, because after this, Sam Cane tries to do a counter captain's challenge, and the referee says you have 10 seconds to make that to make those. We're beyond the 10 seconds. Sorry, mate, you're too late. So clearly, Aaron Smith very much on top of the laws, unsurprisingly. Sam Cane not quite there with that one.
I'd like to go back and look at that clock then, because you're supposed to make it 10 seconds within the incident occurring. Yes. So did he? Then you had that. Then you had a phase, and then you had the try scored, or was the try scored directly?
Surely it's going to be 10 seconds from
no,
the stoppage in play.
10 seconds from the time that it happened. So if you're mid-flow of the game, you're supposed to pick it up and then go, ref, I want to make a captain call.
Yeah, so gentlemen, you see the confusion and the complication this is causing, and this is why I'm not a fan of this. I think what needs to happen is get rid of this whole nonsense. The TMO, if they see something wrong, just interject and let some common sense prevail.
And that's been happening, absolutely. And the other thing about this one, captain's call, is that again they've got the call wrong, right? I mean, there was no mitigating circumstances. That's red. It's with force directly to the guy's throat. What's the mitigating circumstances? Yep. He was reaching up for him, because, as you said, he was on his tippy toes trying to tackle him. So he's now had to actually reach up to get to the throat. And we saw a situation in the game, today's game too, where again they made the wrong call, because they're starting to now move away from what they did last year, which is go by the rule book and say
the high tackle framework.
The high tackle framework, exactly. But saying, okay, we start off any contact with the head. We start off with the red, and we look for mitigating circumstances to go to yellow or no penalty. And it's just like, hang on, they're not doing that. And today, Artie should have had a second yellow card when he makes contact with Sam Whitelock's head. And they start off, is there contact with the head? Yes, there is. It's a red card because there's direct contact with force to the head. Now we look at, are there mitigating circumstances? Now, in the Artie situation, there were mitigating circumstances because of the tackle scenario, but it was still a yellow card, would have been a second yellow card, and therefore a red. But they moved away. The key thing is they moved away from last year from the framework for looking at these high shots or these head contacts.
So you can see, all this is doing is making the game complex. This is like trying to retrieve or get a discount on grab one. You know how they say you get certain percentage if you get a car wash, and then you take it to the car wash, and the guy says, well, you can't actually turn up on Sunday. You got to turn up on Monday at this time, at this address, and you turn up, and they say, well, it's actually not, in our Wellington branch. Can you drive down to Wellington? So guys, this complexity needs to be taken out. 1 + 1 = 2. Let's just focus on the real simple stuff. I think we're just trying to get way too cute, and we're focusing on all the wrong areas. Just focus on the knock-ons, the forward passes, the very obvious stuff, which I might add, the referees are getting wrong.
Okay. Anyway, we don't want to go down too much of repeating what we've talked about over the last 3 or 4 weeks around referees, but we do have to talk about one other incident in this game, which was a tackle in the air, where the player comes down on his back. Now, the situation for this one, folks, is there is an awful pass out wide. The defender comes in to tackle a player who is expected to be running towards him, taking the ball. And the other player goes suddenly, oh, I can't reach that. I'm going to jump up, and jumps up and lands into a player who's trying to tackle someone on the ground, who then does actually try and pull out, I think, but basically doesn't follow through with it.
I actually think, I mean, I haven't actually watched it multiple times, so I might be wrong on this, but I felt the tackler in this situation actually stops, and therefore the tacklee actually ends up carrying on running and jumping, and therefore momentum carries them into the static tackle player who has actually stopped.
That's fine. Yes, you're true. That's all true. The thing is, has contact been made with, as we go running through this again? Has contact been made with the player in the air? Yes.
Yes.
Has he landed dangerously? Yes. Is it on his back? Yes. Yellow.
No. That's when you start to look at. That's when you look at the mitigating. What are the mitigating circumstances? The mitigating circumstances in this situation, the tackler has actually stopped, and the tacklee has made contact with them.
Doesn't matter. A bit like when we've had when you have a kick and a guy catches the kick. We've had players standing in the drop zone.
Yeah. Standing in the drop zone. Okay. So so he's in the vicinity. This is the tackler has actually stopped, and the tacklee is carried on into him. You can't. It's just like no.
But anyway,
if he had carried on into him, and still take that one step forward, and then makes contact, then it's the tackler's fault. But when you've stopped and the dude carries on, okay. So what happens? You're in the back line. You're standing there like totally static. Let me finish. The tackler. So you're in the back line. He's totally stopped, and then you pass the ball to the attacking team is passing the ball in the back line. They run and then they jump. And then they just sort of flip over the guy that hasn't even come progress forward. What's the difference?
Now, look, I'm going to say, look, I agree. There's nothing the tackler could do, and I think the sensible decision was made, right? So I think the sensible decision was made. But according to the letter of the rules, the referee went away from that of the rules, made the sensible and the correct decision.
No, I don't believe he went away from it. As I say, I think that's where you look at. You start off and you're looking for mitigating circumstances, which they, I don't think they actually went through this process. But the fact is that the mitigating circumstances would have actually allowed for the fact that the tackler has stopped and has not progressed into the ball carrier.
Well, we're going to.
I wholeheartedly agree with what Nocturnal says. Look, the law is actually not. There's not enough clarity. So the easiest way to fix this going forward is if someone is up in the air attacking the ball, and if the defender has little to no chance in making an attempt to contest it, don't touch the player. As soon as you go up and touch the player, it has to be an automatic penalty. So the best thing to do is if someone goes up in there for the sake of safety and fan sanity, don't touch him. It's simple. Let him safely land and then tackle him. I think that's where the amendment has to come in. Otherwise,
the difference here is that in this case, for kicks, totally agree with you, right? But in this case, when it's a pass where the player cannot expect the attacking player to be in the air, the attacking player should not be in the air in that situation, right? But anyway.
Yeah, but this is so basically with the law in terms of padding it out, right, and making sure there's the law applies to kicks, not to the passing situation.
Yeah. I'm not putting that comment up on screen. If you really want to see Aaron's comment, please feel
Why
free.
not?
Okay.
That's okay.
Anyway, so basically, look, we'll move on. The law wasn't followed, but the referee made the right decision, or made the sensible decision, but he didn't follow the law. So 25 minutes on the first game.
That's normal, though, isn't it?
Rather than the 15 we're supposed to spend with each game. But anyway, so moving on then. Unless there's any final points you guys want to make about that game, not including referee.
Yeah. How did Paul put $3 on the Chiefs?
I think, and hey, my prediction early mail where the Highlanders are a good value bet for a long shot. I think they're only going to get better. I'm not so sure whether they can actually tip the Crusaders, but starting to really see some good signs, and especially guys like Liam Squire, getting more and more involved in the game. And also Joshua Ioane right towards that second half where he started really striking the ball from the corners and getting his kicking on point. The radar was on point. So I think that's going to be a significant impact in some of the tighter games, and we will start seeing the Highlanders actually shoot for goal more often.
Cool. So that's the first game of the weekend. Moving on, then we went across to Australia for the second game for the Waratahs versus the Force. The Force, a team that had not won a game in Super Rugby since the 15th of July 2017. As the commentators like to keep reminding us. Obviously, the commentators decided to ignore the fact that they hadn't been in Super Rugby for 2 of those years in between. But anyway, and weren't allowed to try and win a game. But anyway.
That's a very Australian trait, I have to say.
So the last game the Force won was their very last game in Super Rugby before they got thrown out. They beat the Waratahs 40-11.
They had form.
So they had form coming into this game. I'll tell you, early on, I was thinking, oh my word, the Waratahs have actually pulled things together. They got an early try. They then kept the scoreboard ticking over and were leading 13-0 after 23 minutes. And you're thinking, wow, have the Waratahs turned a corner? Have they actually got themselves into a good place? The answer, folks, is no, they haven't. But hey, they managed to fake it for the first quarter of the game, at least.
Fake it until you make it.
Exactly. Until the Force forwards had enough of their backs messing things up, and decided that they would do it themselves and show how it's done. So Thrush makes a good hands to set Anstey free, who then finds Lee Warner in a very composed manner to go over and score. And suddenly, a game that the Waratahs had looked like they were in a decent place for, and they're back at 13-10 at half time. Wow, they know how to throw things away pretty quickly, don't they?
Well, we have an emerging trend here. The Waratahs are great starters. If anyone wants to put some money on first point score, Waratahs for a bit of a 3 or 5 point head start, I think that's the way to go. But again, look, it's reflectant on the talent they have at the moment, and they just haven't got the cattle to win games at this level. And it's like a soda pop bottle. They'll play a great quarter and then they just fade off, and they do everything from there on in to lose a game. And also with the Force, you're absolutely right, Paul. The backs just did everything to keep the Waratahs in the game, and as soon as they figured out that the forwards need to start doing some good old-fashioned hard yards, it was a different ballgame.
They're just like the Chiefs, though, isn't it? The Waratahs. It's like you get all pumped up in the sheds, you come out fired up. So you put in a good 20 minutes to start with, but there's nothing really to back it up, and it's only really the adrenaline from out of the sheds that gets them through that first 20, and then once you get rolled over going with a wet sail from the opposition.
Yeah, and also, I keep a very close eye on all the New Zealand and Australian franchises, how they train, how they prepare, and I have to say, in comparison to the New Zealand counterparts, there is a significant shift or significant lack of quality of how they prepare. The intensity, everything is just 5-6 times more intense, especially with the skill level, the ability, with the softer skills, catching the ball with the fingertips, being able to transfer it from point to point at record speed. And of course, the level of conditioning is just, it's chalk and cheese. I mean, some of these New Zealand teams, the guys when they turn up for their first anaerobic testing in pre-season, man, incredible numbers, especially the Bronco test. You compare that to the Australian guys, yeah, you can say they're lagging behind quite significantly.
Which is probably why I'm right to say the game largely fizzles during the second half.
And they need it to frizzle.
Oh,
yeah, and I think technically, I mean, with the greatest respect for the Super Rugby AU coaches, I mean, it really surprises me that technically they are not as crisp as their Australian counterparts, and some of the stuff they do in the contact, because I talk to most of these coaches. They tend to seek a bit of advice, especially with safe tackle framework from time to time. And I have to say, I'm really surprised at significant drop in levels of intensity when it comes to the contact. And you could really see that, especially the Waratahs and the Force, the way these guys are missing tackles. It's quite alarming. So hopefully we have a trans-Tasman competition. And boy, imagine if the Crusaders were to draw a team like the Waratahs first up. What sort of carnage we're going to have.
Carnage. Hey, just on the Force, when you go through some of those names, they've got some pretty big name players in there. It's at least the starting 15, don't they?
Absolutely. But the problem is they've all had 2 games together, right? There's just no understanding between them.
Yeah, sure.
And so, there's a lot of, and some of those guys to us are coming towards the end of their careers as well.
Yeah.
The people like Kahui and Rob Kearney, for example. But they've got some, because basically Rugby Australia decided to shut down their development pathways for a couple of years. They've had to go out shopping whilst they get their development pathways back up and running.
Yeah.
And
they've got some, but they have got some good quality experience. If not, I mean, like as you said, they're getting on and long in the tooth a bit. They've got some really good experience. If they've only had 2 games together, they've got that opportunity to just keep it on the improve, haven't they?
Oh, they're one of the for me,
dark horses.
No, I was going to dark horse, but they've got the most upside out of any team out of any team in Australia.
Right.
On them.
May the Force be with them.
And it's May too. No, it's not. It's March. I'm COVID down. I'm all confused.
COVID out.
It's still March.
It's March the 4th. When you do May the 4th.
The guy I really feel sorry in this whole mess is actually Rob Penny. You are a heck of a nice guy, and I think it's only a matter before he hangs himself. And but then again, you can't. I mean,
sorry, not literally speaking. We mean step down from the role.
It's a figure of speech, by the way.
Yeah. Well, no, they asked him in the interview after the game. I didn't hear the interview after the game, or in some press conference or something. They sort of said, should they get rid of you as the coach? And he goes, I don't know. He didn't say, no, I'm the right man for the job. I'm here, and I'll get. We're on track.
Looking at how poorly they're playing, they're better off actually playing without a coach, because this is a team which is playing aimless rugby. So it's not going to make much difference. And who knows? Maybe if they just turn up and play Sunday footy, throw the ball around. Given how poor some of the defensive efforts are from the opposition, they might just sneak in a few tries, and that might be the way forward. And of course, it pains me to see a guy like Rob Penny. I mean, he's got a really strong reputation as a coach. His reputation is going to be dragged through the mud, and it's just from a personal point of view, I just feel really sorry for the guy, because he's a great coach. He's helped me out mentoring what I do. So yeah, maybe the best thing for NSW Waratahs is to play without a coach and maybe experiment.
Yeah, it's going to take time, but it requires change above Penny, really. It's not the issues aren't there. The issues are higher up the board, etc. Anyway, rather than trying to dissect what's wrong with the Waratahs organisation,
the Waratahs
just coming into some of the they made plenty of breaks, but just kept dropping the ball. They had opportunities in the second half. The Force really did try to let them back into it though, with the Force replacement hooker deciding that he would go nice and high, strike the head, red card. Yeah, obviously it was quite clear. that it was red, and off he goes. Sorry, that's what's right there. This was a punch, wasn't it? That's right. This is the punching one. And seriously, somebody is holding on to your jersey. Fine, you get upset about it. You don't hit him in the face with a closed fist.
Oh, you mean like Joe Moody? Open fist.
Open fist.
You got to do it with an open. You got open palm.
That is the advantage of having an optometrist as a referee. He doesn't see that.
So anyway, look, yeah, at least they've admitted that they got the Moody one wrong. The fact they admitted it wrong, it should be yellow. It's wrong. It should be red. But anyway, never mind. Moving on from that. That was weeks, or at least 1 week ago. They lost the player. They then are defending really, really well. How are they defending really well? By not putting anybody in the ruck and just by having 14 men on their feet. So what does one of their players decide to do? Go into the ruck and give up a penalty. Seriously. So giving up 3 points, putting the Tars back within a point. They did save themselves by getting a scrum penalty and kicking over to extend it back out to 4. But really, some self-destruct moments in there for the Force, but they managed to rectify it and sneak over the line. For them, it doesn't matter, or it's not really so much about the manner of the win. It's just that they've got to win is the important thing for them, I think.
Yeah, no question about it, because things are super desperate now. Super desperate, and it doesn't reflect well at all on New South Wales as a rugby powerhouse. And I think this season there'll be some collateral damage, and it's at some point they will have to have some kind of dramatic intervention. Now, what that is, I'm not exactly sure. Maybe Rugby Australia might need to step in and provide some loan players, something to that effect. But unless there is a minor miracle for the Waratahs, it's only going to get worse. And they're actually not helping themselves, because some of the players, they look completely lost in executing some of their very basic skills. So that's twofold from a coaching point of view. Upstairs, there's a lack of clarity, and also I'd be really, really interested to see how and what they train. And they probably have some very lackadaisical preparation as well. So they need a miracle.
Okay, so Tars, basically don't put your $3 on them. I didn't. Anyway, moving on. Brumbies versus Rebels. Let's be honest. In this one, we'd seen the Rebels had shown us the previous week what we were going to get from them, and boy, did they deliver yet again. Yes, they're going to kick threes, they're going to defend, and they're never going to look like scoring a try. To be fair, I think they got over the line once and had it disallowed. But basically, yeah, they were going to take every shot at three and accumulate. And what was a bit surprising was actually the Brumbies decided to do the same initially, which I think is when we know the Brumbies are very much a go the corner line out more. To see them kick three early on was a bit of a surprise to me. After 90 minutes, they returned to form and went to the corner and got the try. So, through a grubber through that was put down. Again, some interesting Hodge getting taken in the air, taken out in the air. Interesting decisions there. That was all that he landed on his foot first. The Brumbies, unlike previously, when they've been a bit more clinical, they weren't very clear. You can either say the Rebels' defense was really good, or the Brumbies just weren't as clinical last night as they have been in previous games. And we're maybe just an inch off off the pace than normally.
No, they weren't. They weren't as clinical or robotic, whichever way you want to call it. They weren't as robotic as they usually are. But I like the fact that they shooting for goal, calling for the shot, because again, I'm not trying to harp on the refereeing, but because of the inconsistency, you're bound to get plenty of opportunity to shoot points. So take the points, get ahead on the scoreboard, and start building some pressure so that the opposition then have to start chasing the game. So I think from a tactical point of view, that is really, really good. The Rebels did put up some solid, staunch first-up tackles, and I think that kind of jolted the Brumbies into changing that game plan of going to that corner shop and then trying to force themselves with the fishtail more. But again, both sides, execution by and large was not the greatest. It was poor. There was plenty of handling errors, by and large indicative of how Super Rugby AU is heading. But I love the fact that teams are willing to take the points, and the referees are going to aid and abet that situation a lot.
We another red card in this one for a high tackle by Aotearoa. I don't think any arguments there for that one. Yes, Fumasili does sort of lean in a little bit but you do when you're going into contact. No arguments there. Aotearoa, red card, off you go.
No, and this is, I think, look, it's come to a tipping point where Sansa have to actually intervene and actually go and ask the coaches, guys, what's going on? This is a rare occasion. I'm not going to blame the referees. This is now solely on coaches and players. They are entering into contact far too high. And that card on Aotearoa, that's a double red for stupidity. At that level, you just don't do that sort of thing, because the level of force and it's starting to eke out a really ugly pattern, because I'd be really interested to see what the true concussion rates are after both Super Rugby Aotearoa and Super Rugby AU are. Because, in today's game, we saw another nasty head clash. So this is something I think where Sansa now have to step in. And,
they've stepped in the past when scrums were an absolute disaster and were just a penalty fest a few years ago. So they've got form in doing that. So they come in, tell the coaches, look, this is what you're going to be doing. This is how you're going to do scrums now, because we're not going to have our game ruined by just reset scrums. They need to, you say, they just need to step in and say, guys, we're not going to have our game ruined by high tackles.
It's ineffective, and that's the point I'm trying to make. Now, there's a very simple fix. I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet, but hey, safe tackle framework. You just get people to visually enter into a tackle where it's a lot safer. But the reality is, no matter how many cards and penalties are being dished, coaches and players continue to enter into a tackle area a lot higher for two reasons. One, stop the offload, and number two, their hypothesis that they can get away by bunting, staying on the feet, and committing zero players into that tackle, i.e. ruck. So this is where the problem is. So rather than just say, look, guys, we just need to go low, there has to be some kind of pragmatic interventions. At the moment, I don't think Sansa actually have the technical know-how to do that.
In this case, it led to the Rebels leading 10-12 at halftime as well. So as you say, double red or double stupid. There was definitely a very lucky player in the second half. I can't remember the name now. We had a no arms clear out, which was close to the head, but wasn't actually at the head. So again, he just got lucky in that one. He could very easily have gone as well. We did get another yellow this time for and a penalty try as well for collapsing them all, as the Brumbies did what they do well. But again, they allowed a bit like the Force. They got themselves in the lead, kind of thing, and then actually they didn't get themselves in the lead. They kept themselves in touch. But again, a late yellow card for Muirhead, really making themselves do it the hard way. But a great no-look pass for Banks. That's how you want to play the game. Love that try where he just guided straight through. As you said, a few teams are playing this drift defence, aren't they? And when you do that, you are potentially leaving some space back inside if you drift too early.
Yeah, look, the reality is, guys, drift defense is actually a big risk now at any level, especially first class and above. The reason is attacking teams tend to transfer that ball a lot quicker from edge to edge. So if you have one moment's hesitation, it's, your goose is cooked. So you have to be exceptionally good if you are going to drift. And the favored method, and if you look at some of the most successful teams at first class rugby, regional rugby, and Tesla, is this rush defense where they get in people's faces and look to kill the ball within those first two passes from the recycle point. So yeah, it's a bit of a risk. And if you can't get your communication and your defensive connectivity correct, you're going to pay a very, very heavy price.
Yeah, totally.
in-depth edition there from Ashwin. Fantastic.
Indeed, I concur.
I concur, exactly.
I second that motion, sir. Looking at they both sides kept each other in it. We were 24 all with 5 minutes to go. Then a couple of penalties marched the Brumbies down the pitch and gave them a shot at goal. Now, I know you don't agree with some of the calls on those, Boa, but at the end of the day, if you leave yourself down to being just being at evens or within a score, you are allowing the referee to decide the game. You need to decide it yourselves by getting a bigger margin, actually winning it properly.
Yeah, look, I know there were a couple of terrible calls right at the end. One was the Brumbies' first 5. He was right, Rebels were attacking, hot on attack, 2 meters away from the goal line, right under the post. Number 10 just lies all over the tackle play. Should have been rolled. It should have been yellow card. Pretty simple. It's a cynical foul. Ref allows that to roll on, and then the ball goes back. And then, of course, that last alleged number 7 off his feet. I thought it was a brilliant jackal. I mean, this is the sort of stuff you teach players to do. So from a coaching point of view, very, very disappointed. And look, the honest thing is, if a player on review day turns up and says, "Coach, I mean, what did I do wrong?" What are you going to tell these guys? Go talk to the referee. I mean, so again, look, this is where a bit of consistency needs to come. And I say we need to reward positive play. That was a very positive jackal. We've had a number of workshops over this last couple of years on what is legal and what isn't. He had clear rights to that ball, and there was a bit of a trunk roll, which was pretty sloppy at best. Average defensive attempt was rewarded then. It's a fantastic kick to seal again. But for me, the fundamentals are just all messed up. And for me, I think the Rebels were very, very hard done by.
Yeah, see, one thing I was like, and I sent a message when, while the games were on, the fact is that I've lost track now, or my understanding of what I believe is when a ruck is formed is not what's being policed this year. It's quite good. My understanding was as soon as one player from either team is over the ball, a ruck is formed. And that's just not what's being reffed, basically. There is definitely a player over the ball, and they're saying, "Oh no, you're okay to go in and get it," or sort of thing. So yeah, I really think that it just seems to be that what my view of what a ruck is or how it was formed is not what's being policed.
It's what I call rucker roulette, like Russian roulette. Depends on it's very inconsistent. It's very confusing. And look, again, from rugby point of view, we need to encourage positive play, and that was a very positive attempt. He got his hands, he snaffled the ball, and then he just got rolled over. And that whole attempt where when he got rolled over and he fell over, that's what the referee pinged him for. So to me, that's just a very poor interpretation of the law. But again, it just highlights why we're confusing this whole area, which should be pretty simple and straightforward. But it isn't.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you can't leave it up to you need to win. As Rob Baxter says, look, we can't let ourselves be in a position where the referee can decide.
Well,
we're going to move on now.
No, but it's right. And Boa alluded to this before too, in terms of taking the points. It's like you just don't know what the referee's going to call, so you've got to go out there and use positive play.
Yeah, so going forward, it's just not worth contesting the ruck. That's my take on it, and that is some of the feedback I give some of the coaches who work with me and mentor. Now, we're going to have a program next Saturday up in Whangarei where we get a number of coaches around the country coming up for a training program, and that's one of the things I'm actually going to tell them. I say, look, if you're not sure and if it becomes a bit of a lottery, don't contest that situation where it's going to be a penalty.
Well, so that's what you teach your kids, isn't it? Or read the referee. If you're getting pinged for something early on, stop it, because that's the way that the referee's calling it. Whether it's right or wrong doesn't matter. That's the way the referee's calling it.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, you have to be it right or wrong. You have to respect the call which is made in the field, and
that's it. Yeah.
But if we look at some of the stats, I mean, look, the Rebels had 450 run meters compared to 288 by the Brumbies. They made 11 clean breaks to only 3 by the Brumbies. They beat defenders 23 times out of compared to 17. They had 11 offloads to 5. they had the stats here to win this game cleanly. They didn't. The Brumbies did what they do.
So one thing,
sort it out.
Yeah, look. So one thing, just on that, what that sort of shows also was the fact is that if the Brumbies can get some composure and score tries, get some composure as well, they're really going to be competitive against and be at the top of the challenging for the top of the table.
Oh, Brumbies are definitely the favourites to win at Super Rugby AU. Absolutely.
But they're going to beat the Brumbies.
So the Brumbies,
right?
Sorry, no, the Brumbies are coming. Oh, yeah.
Rebels. Did I say Rebels or Brumbies? Sorry.
Brumbies.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry. I meant Rebels. Sorry.
Yeah, if the Rebels can actually add an attack to their defence.
Yeah, and composure, right? Around then they're going to be competitive.
Yep.
Just around the ruck, there's a very simple fix which I have actually suggested to the referees number of occasions. Have some clear communication. If there's a jackal, you say once, you have one crack at the ball. If you fail, you just release. If you have a second go, it's a penalty. That's how it's supposed to be policed, but it's not. That's not happening.
Let's move on. The Crusaders versus the Hurricanes in this one. And the Hurricanes, again, another game where they started well, picked up a yellow card, and for Ardis Bear collapsing a maul. Now, a maul that started around about the 22. So it's a long way in. So a lot of people suggesting that perhaps even a penalty try could have been given for that one there. And I can see where that argument is coming from.
Oh, it should have been.
What do we see from this Crusaders team? A team that was so-so initially. Yellow card, bang, 3 tries in 10 minutes, and the game's gone. Cody Taylor, wow, playing some wonderful rugby. Look, you should not be able to score a try with a 5 meter with the defence set, which the Hurricanes' defence was, to tap and go, not pass it, not have anyone else in your side involved at all, for you to run sideways across the line, find a gap and dive over. That should not be possible. The Hurricanes, again, perhaps too passive on defence, not rushing up enough.
Totally. Just way too passive and very casual, in fact, because they just gave up the fringe very easily. And Cody Taylor was an outstanding game. And, of course, special mention, Cullen Grace and Ethan Blackadder, barnstorming game. And also out in the fringe, was it Whitelock? I think it's 7 carries, if I'm not mistaken. So they played some very simple rugby. And from 20th minute onwards, right to about the 48th, 49th minute, they were sublime. They were on point. They piled up all the points, and they just took the foot off the pedal. And then the game sort of disintegrated from point to point. But at the same time, I thought the Hurricanes were just far too slow. And in that they had some serious defensive frailties right in the midfield. They put the wrong players to mark the wrong players. And that's why guys like Cody Taylor, they were hitting that gap constantly. Boy, Crusaders, they're clinical. They're like the great white megalodon shark. They sniff blood. They just go and they take a right chunk out of your side. And, that's it. The goose is well and truly cooked.
But the thing is that, with the Hurricanes is the fact is that, they are a very Jekyll and Hyde team. And, you go back a week when they played the Blues. If that team that played the Blues turned up to play the Crusaders, different ball game. The intensity from the Hurricanes just wasn't there at all.
Yeah, Hurricanes are very similar to what the Chiefs did, in fact, because, again, they were taking the ball either side and also that first up tackle. They just they used the wrong defensive structure against a team like the Crusaders. You got to kill that pass within the first 2 passes. And when you have guys like Reese and the likes of Will Jordan coming off the bench to finish the game, you just do not give these Crusaders space. You've got to kill it. And, of course...
you shut the space down.
You got to shut the space down. And of course... I thought Ardy was very lucky. In fact, I thought that should have been a penalty try because that
was a penalty try.
That fishtail driving maul was destined to be a try. So again, poor refereeing there. But
lack of professionalism by the Canes, because if to be more professional, that started outside the 22.
Well, just inside the 22. But
so it's going there. You pull it down after it's gone 5 meters. You pull it out 10 meters out from the try line, not 5 meters out from the try line. That's what the Crusaders would have done. They would have pulled it down 10 meters out when it starts rolling and when it starts getting momentum.
Sorry. You say the side that gave up 14 penalties to 6 would have collapsed them all. I don't believe you, sir.
Well, look, guys, here's something really interesting. Last year, I remember when Crusaders went down, I had a good catch up with Razor Robertson, and one of the things I spoke to Scotty about was what's the best way to defend a driving or a fishtail more. So the takeaway from that, and what I would put forward, is to actually not contest it. Let them set the maul and actually have no offside line and go around. A number of teams have done this very, very effectively.
That's right.
So again, it's just really poor preparation from the Hurricanes. And I mean, if any of your analysis staff are watching, just give me a call. I can help you.
Yeah. And look, just on Nocturnal's comment about Laumapi. Look, let's be honest about Laumapi. Laumapi has good games against the Blues. When does he then goes missing? He's obviously got some bee in his bonnet about playing the Blues or whatever it is, and he comes out and has absolutely fabulous games against them. He ran around and outsped. My England's really good. Outsped Bowden Barrett last year, right? And it's just like, whoever thought that Laumapi had that pace, but he did it against the Blues. And then where does that come through? Doesn't back it up. So all the guys that jump on the Laumapi bandwagon to say, oh, he should be an All Black and he should be ahead of this guy. The fact is that he's got to back it up week in, week out for the All Black selectors to then say, he's our number 12.
Yeah, with Laumapi, look, twofold, guys. I think today the Hurricanes' attacking pattern, purely from coaching point of view, is awful. He was just very easy and very predictable, as rightly Nocturnal says on the chat. He couldn't get those good lines. And number two, he just didn't go looking for the work. That's what class players do. They go look for the work. They put the yards in, put the big boomfa. It just didn't happen today. And the Hurricanes looked more like a little breeze in the park as opposed to a tornado or a hurricane. Oh, yeah.
Something blowing through New Caledonia.
Yeah.
So some of the things there. Look, looking at it, so I can't believe that according to the stats, Hurricanes had 8 clean breaks, the Crusaders only 3. And you're like, hang on, how did
that's the 3 tries?
That's one of those. Yeah, definitely is definitely Moody's 3, and that's one of your points. One of the things about marking up in midfield, you were talking about some there. But normally, what we're talking about is an outside back spotting a guy in front of them with a low number, or basically but what with someone like Cody Taylor now and the skill he's got. He's doing a similar thing. He's like, okay, I'm basically an outside back. If you put a 4 and a 3 up in front of me, I'm going to run through the middle of them because I'm just going to use my they're not going to touch me because I'm going to use my feet to run around them.
Yeah,
and go through the gap.
But if you look at how the Crusaders were defending, they had Blackadder and Cullen Grace close together, going up at speed, marking those first up tackles, and they didn't miss a single tackle.
Yep.
So to me, that is real coaching and preparation because they've figured out what the most effective way forward is. Now, from a counter coaching point of view, you just got to make adjustments. If that's not going to work, then you start attacking width. And then you use Laumapi accordingly on that second or third phase. But that wasn't happening. It was very predictable, easy read. And yeah, it was very flat from the Hurricanes.
But once those my notes for Brumbies versus Rebels actually useless. I didn't make any notes.
No, you didn't. We were having pizza.
Yeah, we were eating at the time. Sorry. So these all from memory. But once those 3 tries have been scored, you were kind of like, okay, the game's gone.
Game was very flat after those 3 tries, really, wasn't it? It's just like I said, the game was sort of like, oh, it's over. As the Crusaders will basically control the game from this point to make sure that the Canes don't come back into it.
I think we had one more soon afterwards, and then obviously we had the kind of really sealed it. I think there was one just before half time, wasn't there, as well? So there was those 3 in a burst, then one just before half time. And the game at 26-6 at half time, it's gone because the Scott Barrett try, that was the one that was the extra one. And then basically lots of substitutes, all a bit disjointed. A late try to Peter Emmanuel-Jensen for the late couple of tries to the Hurricanes, one to Ricky Telly and one to Peter Emmanuel-Jensen, but all far too little, far too late.
Yeah, look, the other thing, the other point I'm trying to make is, this Scott Barrett is playing himself some outstanding form, and had a barnstorming game today. He was very clinical, great carries, and I think he's being utilized very well as a strike weapon out wide to complement with the outside backs. Again, so brilliant work from Scott Robertson and the coaching team. And I think conditioning, the Crusaders have really, done their jam, and you can clearly see they're head and shoulders above. The tempo they play, the pace they play, it's outstanding. So it's going to be very, very, very difficult for any side, the other one, to beat. And I'd be very surprised if they don't go all the way.
The other thing I was just going to say about, just talking about players and the like, because we talked about it with Rayasi. We just think that the Canes coaching team, you just talked about Robertson and the planning and picking the right players, that sort of thing. The Canes are leaving Rayasi on the bench, and he's, he should be starting. We have difference of opinion. You think for Julian Sevilla, I think for Wes Houston. But at the end of the day, Rayasi should be on the field for the Canes. No
question, he should start. I think I hate to say this, pains me a lot. I think Severe's starting to be a bit of a liability now, and I'm bang on with Nocturnal. Rayasi's got to start because one of the form players in the NPC, and it's just not getting the game time. To me, that's just absolute madness.
It's madness.
One of the other low points I have to mention was that head collision, 54th minute. Blackadder. It was friendly flyer. And again, guys, this is what I keep harping on about. These players are entering into the contact zone far too high. It was a very nasty clash. I think
it was actually Goodhue's shot elbow that actually collected his head.
Yeah, exactly. So if someone is going to get collected that high, it means they're entering. So it's a very basic skill. It's called bending the knees, and this is something which, and again, I go back to that point I kept making about Sansa having to interject here. I think this needs to be closely examined and monitored, and there has to be some basic interventions put in, and it has to be a collaboration between administrators, coaches, players, and referees. At the moment, it's all one way. The refs are dishing out cards like Santa Claus left, right, and center. You can't blame these guys because the players are being encouraged to go high.
Now, okay, so that's the last we're going to do on referees. The one last thing I would mention is we kind of touched on it earlier. Was Garden Basher. Look, he has a break. He's heading towards the corner. If he just keeps running for the corner, doesn't
stop, doesn't slow down,
look around, try and find support,
he scores.
Dives early, he scores, just like Nariki did.
Yep.
He just showed that like he is young at this level. He didn't have the composure to finish it, unfortunately.
Well, you have to say,
hopefully he gained that composure.
Well, Jackson's no Connor is one, obviously. You see that, right? This is like Connor's got pace, Jackson doesn't.
Yeah, and also, great cover tackle. Perfect technique, around the thigh area. It's what you call a gator tackle or a crocodile roll. Brilliant technique. So again, this is where technical coaching and technical repetitive work at high performance comes in handy. A bit of inexperience from the young man. He should have just pricked his ears like a racehorse and just gone for goal. He didn't.
Yep.
Great bit of counter work, right? I mean, if any kids are watching, that's a textbook tackle. That's how you tackle. It's safe, it is effective, and it's a try saver.
And a bit of lack of game awareness for me too, because the fact is that going to the court, no support, and he ran to the corner.
No support. I mean, I saw Adi Surveyor, Adi, one of the fastest guys. I mean, it looked like he needed Uber because, everyone else was just disinterested. So, it just goes to show that, a bit of game awareness and, right, you said game management. But, rugby is a game where 14 of your mates help the 15th mate score a try, and that didn't happen on that occasion.
Yeah.
That's interesting. My son just said that with flipper ball today.
So interestingly enough, with that one run, Garden Bishop got 73 meters and was the second most meters for the for the Hurricanes on the day. 82 for Mappy off 13 carries. Interestingly enough, for all we've been bagging him. Ashwin's been bagging him. McLeod, I must admit, there's a player that I didn't know much. I guess didn't really rate, or wasn't kind of
Didn't rate.
Wasn't really that aware of, to be honest, coming into this. But look, he's been doing a decent job at 12, filling in, obviously, because Braden Enor is injured now for the season. So he's definitely taken his opportunity very well. Not suggesting he should be playing All Blacks or anything like that, but I mean, doing a decent job at Super Rugby. So well done on him for taking his opportunity with both hands. Right, I think we should wrap things up.
I was just going to say, we need to make sure that Nocturnals put Garden Batship lacks confidence. We have to specify now which one, Connor or Jackson, because Connor's playing with truckloads of confidence. Jackson's playing with nothing.
You know, I have to say that run and that tackle on the line reminded me of myself about 3 years ago. I was playing touch with my Premier squad. Everyone was stunned that I made a break. The old man made a break and ran all the way. I was stunned myself, but then sure enough, about half a dozen of the boys caught up and bundled me into touch. So it's a bit of a Karthik moment for me. Also, I have to say, in the broadcast, there's a beautiful moment. Norm Berryman, the late great Norm Berryman, was given a bit of mention. Good friend of mine, unfortunately no longer with us, but it was beautiful to see one of the best players to ever wear that Crusaders shirt. So rest in peace, the great late Norm Berryman.
Well, with that, we will say good night to you all. I'll be back at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning with the morning sports briefing. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. with Swinging from the Hip. Where we'll be.
You'll be hosting.
I'll be hosting. Oh, well, there we go. So therefore, we'll be talking a lot about how
England played,
how India just basically don't produce batting, don't produce test-worthy wickets,
and England don't produce test-worthy batsmen.
Well, yeah, that's much more to the point. Let's be honest. So thank you, everybody, and good night.